The stars were silent that night. They always were before a war began. Far beyond the broken moon of Helora, the Valeth Dominion prepared its fleet for what they called a final sweep. The cleansing of the last human colony in Sector 12. Their ships stretched across the void like a wall of metal teeth, glowing with energy and arrogance. Admiral Karun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vorn Exalt, his 4 black eyes fixed on the hologram of a small blue planet below. He smirked. Primitive creatures. Their resistance has delayed us long enough. End it tonight, his officers nodded. They were certain of victory. Humans were emotional, chaotic, and weak. The Dominion had studied them for years, recorded their wars, their failures, their irrational bravery. Every battle had ended the same way, in destruction. So when the order came to erase the last of humanity, the aliens called it a simple operation, not a war. Down on the planet, in the city of Arkenfield, the people of the colony gathered in silence. Children were hidden in underground shelters. The sky burned faintly with the reflection of the alien fleet's engines. In the control tower above the city, Commander Reeve Hale stood with a handful of exhausted officers. His face was pale, his uniform torn. "They're moving into formation," said a young officer. 3,000 ships. They'll begin bombardment in minutes. Reeve looked out through the cracked window. "Is the evacuation complete?" "Mostly, sir. But there's nowhere left to go." He nodded slowly. There was no anger left in him, only a quiet kind of acceptance. The colony had no warships, only transports and broken satellites. Their last transmission to Earth months ago had gone unanswered. The Dominion had destroyed the communication relays. No one was coming. Outside, the alien fleet shifted. The sky shimmered with red lines as the first attack coordinates were locked. The Dominion fleet moved in perfect silence, their discipline frightening. Then it happened. A low hum rippled across the darkness. Not a sound, but a vibration that touched every sensor in the alien armada. Admiral Karun frowned. "Report. Unknown signal detected, Admiral. Not Dominion, it's human in pattern. Impossible. They have no fleet left." But the hum grew louder, distorting their scanners. Radio channels filled with static. And then, through the interference, came something strange. A fragment of an old Earth song. A man's voice, grainy, singing through the static. "We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when." The bridge went silent. Every alien officer stared at the Admiral. The song echoed faintly through their ships, old and haunting, as if ghosts themselves were transmitting it. "Find the source," Karun snapped. The radar officer hesitated. "Admiral, it's moving toward us." A ripple of energy appeared near the edge of the system. At first, they thought it was a meteor. Then, as it drew closer, its shape formed through the dust, long, dark, and heavy. A ship, ancient yet alive, moving faster than any Dominion vessel ever recorded. When the light hit it, the entire fleet saw the emblem carved into its hull, a single white insignia of Earth's old navy. The nameplate read, HSS Leviathan. On the planet, Commander Reeve's eyes widened. "What in God's name is that?" His officer whispered, "A battleship, sir." "A human one," Reeve almost laughed. There were no human battleships left. They had all been destroyed decades ago. Yet there it was, black as iron and silent as death. Its engines glowed blue, brighter than the stars around it. The alien fleet locked their weapons. Admiral Karun's voice thundered. "Destroy that relic. I want nothing left of it." Thousands of energy cannons charged at once. The night sky turned red as the first volley of plasma fire shot toward the Leviathan. The humans on the planet braced for the explosion, but it never came. Instead, the plasma bolts vanished mid-flight, as though swallowed by invisible currents. The Leviathan moved, impossibly fast for a ship of its size, turning sharply and reappearing behind the front alien formation. Its weapons ignited in a single blinding flash. One Dominion cruiser was hit squarely. It split in half, burning silently in space. Another followed, then another. The aliens screamed over their comms, their formation breaking apart. Admiral Karun gritted his teeth. How are they doing this? Lock on now. But their systems failed to track it. The Leviathan moved like a shadow, vanishing and reappearing, its every shot deliberate and devastating. On the planet, humans stood outside, staring at the sky where faint flashes painted the clouds. For the first time in years, hope flickered. Reeve whispered, "Who's commanding that ship?" No one answered. The colony's radio suddenly crackled. A transmission came through, a female voice, calm and steady. "This is Captain Juno Rhodes of the HSS Leviathan. To all human survivors, and hold your ground," Reeve blinked. Juno Rhodes. She's alive? Her name was Legend, one of the last admirals of the Solar Fleet, presumed dead during the fall of Mars. But legends, it seemed, could return when the galaxy least expected. Up above, the Leviathan turned once more, facing the center of the Dominion Armada. Inside the alien flagship, chaos reigned. Sensors failed, communication broke down. A second Earth song began playing through the interference, slow, sorrowful, defiant. Admiral Karoon slammed his fists on the console. "They dare mock us with music?" But deep down he knew what it meant. It was not mockery. It was a message. Humanity had returned, not as victims but as ghosts of vengeance. As the Leviathan charged its cannons again, every alien ship saw one thing glowing across its hull, 3 words that burned brighter than any star: "For Earth's honor." The battle had not even begun, and yet the aliens already felt the first cold edge of fear. And in that moment, as the Leviathan roared through the black, the war that was supposed to be easy became the beginning of the Dominion's nightmare. The calm was over. The fire had begun. The Leviathan drifted silently among the stars, its dark hull covered with battle scars from wars long forgotten. Inside, the narrow corridors pulsed with blue emergency lights. Every panel flickered from age, and the hum of the old reactor echoed like a heartbeat through the metal bones of the ship. Captain Juno Rhodes stood on the bridge, her reflection dim in the cracked glass. Her eyes, tired but sharp, studied the swarm of red signals gathering on the screen. Thousands of alien ships closing in. She had faced death before, but never odds like these. Behind her, the crew worked quietly. No one spoke of fear. They all knew why they were here. Humanity had been scattered, broken, almost erased. The Leviathan was not just a warship. It was a ghost from an age when Earth still ruled the stars. "Status report," Juno said. "Reactor stable," replied Lieutenant Yara. "Weapons are charged, but we're running on limited reserves. We can't sustain full firepower for long." Juno nodded. "We won't need long." The ship's AI Vanguard flickered to life on the center console. Its voice was calm, mechanical, but carried a faint echo of sorrow. "Captain, tactical prediction suggests 0 probability of survival." Juno smiled slightly. "Then let's make them remember us anyway." Outside, the alien fleet adjusted its formation. Admiral Karoon's orders thundered through the Valith channels. "Surround it. I want that ship torn apart." The first wave of alien bombers dove in, their plasma cannons lighting the void. Explosions burst around the Leviathan, shaking the bridge. Metal groaned. Sparks rained from the ceiling. "Shields holding at 60%, shouted Yara. Juno gripped the console. "Fire railguns. Target their command ships." The Leviathan's ancient weapons roared to life. 2 massive electromagnetic cannons glowed white, then unleashed streaks of light faster than any alien sensor could track. The shots tore through the nearest Valith destroyers, slicing them open like paper. Alien pilots screamed across the comms. Karoon's voice trembled with disbelief. That firepower, impossible. Their technology was primitive, but human war was never about technology. It was instinct, creativity, desperation, things no simulation could predict. On board the Leviathan, the crew cheered as alien ships exploded in distant flashes. Yet the celebration was brief. The next wave came, even larger. The Dominion fleet began to box them in, blocking escape routes. Vanguard's voice returned. "Enemy reinforcements detected. Overwhelming numbers. I recommend retreat." Juno shook her head. "There's nowhere to retreat to. We hold." Her hand rested on a small charm hanging from her wrist, an old Earth trinket shaped like a star. It was all she had left from her daughter, lost during the siege of Mars. The battle outside became chaos. The Leviathan spun through debris, its engines blazing. Alien plasma tore holes in its armor. Crew members ran through the corridors, sealing bulkheads, carrying the wounded. Fire alarms screamed. In the medbay, Dr. Lennox, bleeding from his forehead, treated soldiers with trembling hands. "We're outnumbered 100 to 1, he muttered. "How long can we last?" One of the engineers, her face smudged with oil, replied, "As long as the captain says." Back on the bridge, Juno's eyes darted over the screens. The alien flagship Vorn Exalt was approaching, its weapons locking onto the Leviathan. "Bring us around," she ordered. "Point our cannons at the flagship." Yara hesitated. "Captain, that ship's 10 times our size." "Then they'll see what 10 times the courage looks like." The Leviathan surged forward, weaving between enemy ships, its guns blazing in every direction. The aliens fired back, filling the darkness with burning light. One of the Leviathan's side turrets exploded, shaking the entire ship. "Damage on decks 7 through 10, yelled a voice over the radio. "We've lost power to the aft cannons."
Juno steadied herself.
"Divert all power to the main railguns," Vanguard responded instantly. "Warning, doing so will overload the cooling system." "Do it," she said coldly. The engines screamed as the ship turned toward the Vorn Exalt. The alien flagship loomed ahead, its surface crawling with blue lightning from its charged cannons. Admiral Karun watched from his throne-like chair, his voice low. "End this now. Every Valeth ship open fire." Beams of energy crashed into the Leviathan's hull. Metal plates melted. Entire decks went dark. Inside the bridge, the lights flickered out. Juno stood in the glow of the fire control screen. "Now, Vanguard." The railguns fired one last time, a blinding double strike that pierced through the alien flagship's armor, straight into its core. The explosion that followed turned the void white. When the light faded, both ships drifted apart, one burning, one broken. On the human colony below, Reeve Hale and his officers stared at the sky. The battle still raged, but the sight of the massive alien flagship collapsing brought a surge of hope none of them had felt in years. He whispered, "She's fighting for all of us." In orbit, the Leviathan floated through debris. Fires burned along its hull, but it was still moving. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and silence. Dozens of crew members lay injured or gone. Juno stood at the shattered window of the bridge, breathing heavily. "Damage report." "Half the ship is offline," Yara replied softly. "But we're still here," Juno smiled faintly. "Then we're not done yet." Vanguard's voice returned, quieter now. "Captain, alien reinforcements inbound." "You cannot win this battle." Juno looked out at the dark void filled with enemy lights. Her eyes narrowed. "Winning isn't the point, Vanguard. Surviving isn't either. Then what is the point?" She turned to face the burning horizon of stars. "To make sure every one of them remembers humanity was here." And as the Leviathan's engines reignited, painting blue fire across the stars, the ghosts of human wars, and the spirit that no empire could kill, rose once more to haunt the galaxy. The ghosts of war had returned. The wreckage of alien ships floated like dead stars around the Leviathan. Every few seconds, lightning from ruptured reactors flashed across the void. But amid the silence, the war was far from over. From the shattered bridge of the alien flagship Vorn Exalt, Admiral Karun clawed his way out from beneath broken steel. The air inside was filled with smoke and panic. Dozens of his officers lay dead. The rest scrambled to restore communication. "Report," he roared, blood dripping from one of his black eyes. "Half the fleet destroyed, Admiral," an officer gasped. "The human ship still operational. It should not be possible." Karun slammed his claws against the console. "It is one ship. One, end it." He watched through the viewport as the Leviathan turned slowly, dragging a trail of fire from its wounded engines. The sight was haunting. Despite the damage, it moved with precision, like a predator choosing its next strike. On board the Leviathan, Captain Juno Rhodes wiped soot from her face. Her uniform was torn, her arm bleeding, but her eyes were clear. Around her, the bridge flickered with emergency lights. "Status?" she demanded. Lieutenant Yara checked the readings. "Hull integrity down to 30%. Power reserves critical, but railguns are still functional. And the aliens, they're regrouping. But they've lost command structure. They're confused," Juno exhaled slowly. "Good. Confused enemies make mistakes." She stepped closer to the main display, showing hundreds of red dots swarming ahead. For every alien ship she destroyed, 10 more arrived. But something had shifted. The Valeth were no longer fearless. Their movements were messy, disordered. They were learning something terrible. Humans fought differently. The AI Vanguard spoke again. "Captain, based on enemy movement, they are preparing for an orbital encirclement. Recommend withdrawal behind Helora's moon." Juno shook her head. If we run, they'll destroy the colony. We fight here. Probability of success. Do not tell me the odds, she interrupted. We've beaten worse odds before. In the engineering bay, Chief Mechanic Aaron Hale tightened the coolant valves with trembling hands. The ship shuddered with every hit. He looked at his team, greasy, tired, and bleeding, and shouted, "We keep her alive. She's all we have." The crew cheered faintly, their exhaustion masked by defiance. The Leviathan's engines pulsed again, glowing brighter as the ship turned toward the heart of the Dominion fleet. The alien formations opened fire. Plasma beams streaked across the dark, carving deep wounds into the Leviathan's hull. Metal screamed. Entire sections of the ship tore away. Deck 9 destroyed. Yara shouted, "We've lost life support in aft sections." Juno gripped the command rail. "Seal the bulkheads. Divert power to forward shields." The ship groaned as the orders executed. Meanwhile, across the Dominion channels, chaos spread. Many captains wanted to retreat. The psychological fear was spreading faster than logic could control. One alien commander shouted through the comms, "It is not a machine. It fights like it feels rage." Karun silenced him with a snarl. "It is dying. All things die. Advance." Back on the Leviathan, Yara looked up. "Captain, enemy flagship detected. Energy surge approaching lethal levels." Juno narrowed her eyes. "They're charging their primary cannon. Should we evade?" She shook her head. "No. Aim railguns on the flagship's cannon array. When they fire, we fire." The crew stared in disbelief. It was suicide. But they had stopped doubting her long ago. The countdown began. The alien flagship's weapon glowed brighter and brighter, forming a sun of blue plasma. The Leviathan's railguns whined, coils heating to white. Vanguard's tone deepened. "Captain, critical temperature exceeded." "One more shot may destroy us," Juno whispered. "Then let it destroy us beautifully." The alien flagship fired first. A wave of energy screamed toward the Leviathan, enough to vaporize a mountain. "Fire!" Juno shouted. The Leviathan's cannons answered. Twin bolts of pure magnetic force ripped through the plasma storm, slicing straight into the alien weapon before it fully stabilized. The result was chaos. The Vorn exalt exploded from within, a sunburst of molten light spreading across the void. The shockwave hurled ships away, shredding smaller vessels to pieces. The Leviathan was thrown backward, its hull cracking like thunder. Inside, alarms blared. Fire tore through the corridors. Crew members were thrown from their stations. The bridge went dark, power down. "Reactor overload!" cried Yara. Vanguard's voice echoed faintly through the flickering lights. "Reactor breach in 60 seconds. Juno coughed through the smoke, eyes burning. "Reroute core power to shields. Keep us alive through the blast. It will leave us powerless. Do it!" The Leviathan's remaining lights dimmed. For a moment it drifted, a ghost in the storm. Then the explosion engulfed them. Minutes passed. Silence returned. The alien fleet, once vast, was now a field of glowing debris. Only a fraction of their ships remained, scattered and terrified. Inside the damaged Leviathan, the crew slowly regained consciousness. Systems flickered back online. Yara blinked at the monitor. We survived." Juno looked around. The bridge was a ruin. Half her team was gone. But the ship still breathed. "Status of the colony?" "Safe, Captain." "The aliens are retreating." She sank against the rail, exhausted, but her voice remained steady. "Send a message to the survivors down there." What should it say? Juno looked out the window at the wreckage of the Dominion fleet. The reflection of the stars danced across her face. "Tell them," she said softly, "that humanity doesn't die quietly." Below, on the planet's surface, as the alien fleet vanished from orbit, the sky lit up with falling debris like shooting stars. Children watched from the shelters, pointing upward. For the first time in their lives, they saw beauty in the sky, not fear. Commander Reeve Hale looked up and whispered, "Whoever she is, she just changed everything." Far above, in the drifting silence, the Leviathan's engines flickered weakly. Inside the damaged ship, Juno stood before the AI core, her reflection split in the glass. "Vanguard," she said quietly. "How long before the reactor fails completely?" 2 hours at most, Captain. Repairs impossible. Then we spend those 2 hours wisely. What do you intend?" She stared at the stars, her jaw set. "To finish what we started." And as the Leviathan turned toward the last remaining Dominion battleships, its engines reignited, blue fire cutting, Across the darkness once more, the galaxy would remember this day, the day one human ship turned the tide of an empire, and humanity's roar echoed through the stars once again. The silence that followed the battle was heavy, almost holy. The stars, once filled with the screams of war, now floated quietly around the debris of two dead armadas. In the center of it all drifted the HSS Leviathan, wounded, burning but alive, from the planet below. The surviving colonists watched the faint light of the ship flicker like a lonely beacon among the shattered remains of the Valith fleet. Children pointed at it with wonder. Elders whispered prayers. To them it was not just a warship, and it was a miracle. Inside the Leviathan everything was broken. Metal bulkheads were torn open. Smoke crawled through the corridors, and the air was thick with the smell of burnt wiring. Yet the sound of life persisted, the slow heartbeat of the reactor and the quiet voices of those who refused to die. Captain Juno Rhodes walked through the ruined hallways with a limp, one arm bandaged, her uniform blackened by fire. Every step echoed through the empty metal. The few surviving crew members saluted weakly as she passed, their faces pale but proud. She reached the command deck. The stars beyond the cracked viewport were clearer now, sharper, as if the universe itself had paused to listen. "Status?" she asked softly. Lieutenant Yara, sitting among sparking consoles, turned toward her. "Power at 12%. Reactor failing. Life support holding for maybe an hour. And the Valith? Retreating, Captain." "What's left of them?" Juno let out a faint breath. "They will come back. They always do." The AI Vanguard's voice flickered through the static. "Captain, communications array partially restored. Incoming transmission from the planet, put it through." The main display sputtered, then steadied into an image of Commander Reeve Hale. His face appeared bruised and tired, but his eyes were shining. "Captain Rhodes," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "on behalf of every living soul down here, thank you. You saved us." Juno's lips curved into a small smile. "Do not thank me, Commander. Thank the ghosts who built this ship. I just kept it moving." Reeve nodded slowly. "What will you do now?" Juno glanced at the dim stars. "Finish the job." Before he could reply, the connection cut out. The ship trembled as more warning lights turned red. Vanguard's voice lowered. "Captain, core stability deteriorating. A containment breach is unavoidable." "How long?" 40 minutes. Juno looked around the silent bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting, trusting. She felt the weight of their eyes, of their loyalty. These were the last soldiers of Earth's Navy, and they deserved more than to simply fade away. "Set course for the Dominion command station," she said. Yara froze. "Captain, that's suicide." "It's guarded." "I know," Juno replied. "But the Dominion needs a message they will never forget." Outside, the Leviathan turned slowly, its engines flickering back to life. The blue glow intensified, spreading across its hull like veins of light. Broken, battered, but still defiant, the ship began to move, straight toward the Valith stronghold orbiting the gas giant Serath. On the alien command station, alarms blared. Officers screamed across channels as sensors picked up the human battleship approaching at impossible speed. "Admiral Karun," one officer shouted. "It's the same ship." "It's still coming." Karun, standing with his arm in a sling, turned slowly toward the screen. His eyes widened. The Leviathan was a burning shadow against the planet's light, moving like something alive. He whispered, "Impossible." "Should we engage?" asked his officer. Karun hesitated. His pride wanted to fight. His fear wanted to flee. He had faced many enemies, but never one that refused to die. "Fire everything," he said finally, his voice trembling. Hundreds of plasma lances streaked through space. The Leviathan did not dodge. It moved straight through the barrage, armor melting, engines screaming. Piece by piece, the ship came apart, but it did not stop. Inside, fires roared through the halls. Crew members held their stations with shaking hands. Yara shouted over the smoke, "Reactor at meltdown point." Juno stood firm at the command rail, her eyes locked on the screen showing the alien command station ahead. Her voice was calm. "Arm the reactor." Vanguard's voice softened. "Captain, if you detonate, there will be no recovery. I know. Your name will be forgotten. Then remember it for me," she said. "That's an order." There was silence for a long moment. Then the AI replied quietly, "Always, Captain Rhodes." The ship plunged forward. The alien station filled the screen. growing larger and larger until it consumed the stars. The Leviathan's reactor reached its limit, glowing like a miniature sun. On the planet below, Commander Reeve watched through binoculars as the night sky flashed brighter than dawn. A single explosion filled the heavens, vast, silent, and beautiful. The shock wave rippled across the orbit of Helora, scattering the remains of the Dominion fleet. The light lingered for several seconds before fading into the black, and then, nothing. The HSS Leviathan was gone. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a new sound filled the comms, a final transmission, faint and broken. Juno's voice echoed through every surviving channel in the sector. To the stars that tried to erase us. Know this, humanity endures. Even in fire we endure. And then the signal faded forever. Months later, across the Dominion's outer colonies, whispers began to spread. Miners claimed they saw a ghostly shape drifting between nebulae, a dark ship with blue fire in its wake. Some said it was wreckage. Others swore they heard an old Earth song on open frequencies, faint but clear. We'll meet again. In alien academies, young officers were taught new war doctrines. At the top of every manual, one rule was written in red: never underestimate the humans. And deep in the heart of space, among the stars that once burned with war, the echo of a human voice still lingered, a promise carried on the silence of eternity. We may fall, but we never vanish. The galaxy would never forget, because that night, one battleship, one crew, and one captain had turned the tide, and reminded the universe what it truly meant to be human. The echo of humanity lived on, bright and eternal among the stars.